Hello and welcome to the ChinnyVision 2022 Q&A from ChinnyVision Rocks, as ever, but you'll notice there's a problem today because the tide is quite far out and I don't want to ruin my new shoes by clambering all over those rocks. Aha, but we have technology on our side, so we're going to zoom around a bit. Actually, I took this footage this morning. It is now, what time is it? It is 9 PM on Monday the 11th of July. That's why I asked everyone to get their questions in yesterday. And before we go any further, I better prove it's actually 9 PM on the hottest day of the year in Cornwall at ChinnyVision Rocks. Here we go. See, there we go. This is the actual footage, what I'm looking at the moment. There's the recorder down there. And yes, malicious afterthought explained why Cornwall has gone cloudy today. It's to do with the way the direction of the wind is coming off of the shore and stuff. So yeah, it's not quite it's been really hot, but it's really cooled off now. In fact, slightly chilly here. But if you're still watching this and watching me go on, then the information you need is ChinnyVision will return in September. This is the last video before September. To be precise, Thursday the 1st of September. Thursday the 1st of September will be your next regular video. So if you don't want to watch the Q&A, then tune out now. Yeah, bye-bye. But if you do want to hear the Q&A, we've got some fantastic questions with prizes as well. And yeah, so I will pick out my favourite questions and give you a prize if I think it amuses me. So, first question is from Frederick Bolton. These have been selected at random, but I'm going to read every one. Which game has impressed you the most across many platforms, i.e. the most playable conversion that is good on any platform it appears? For example, I love Chucky Egg. Chucky Egg is great. In fact, MSX version is very underrated. Go and try the MSX version of Chucky Egg because it's really good and it uses the sprites and all sorts. It's really nice. The game that's really good across the most platforms, Head Over Heels is a good example of a game that works across many platforms. Obviously, Spectrum and Amstrad versions and the Amstrad PCW is a good versions to play. The Spectrum original and then that PCW version is really good. Other games you could play across, Chucky Egg's a fantastic example of a game that's just good across so many platforms. Yeah, basically Head Over Heels, Frederick. That's the one I'd give. Walden N, and these are the names that either Patreon or YouTube has given me. So, when you were younger, did you envy any other computer that you didn't have? And later on in life, when you got said computer, were you disappointed in it, or did you appreciate your first computer? He said he was a bit jealous of the C64 being an Amstrad owner. I mean, there was this kind of playground thing, wasn't there, where everyone was kind of, you had to have your position and it was war. So, you had all that. My mate had a C64 and no way would I ever let him know that I quite liked some of the games. But I actually bought his C64 off him when he got his Amiga because he kept his ST. But he sold me his 64 and I've still got many of his games. And yeah, I like, it's not even the big games you'd expect. I like Night Racer by Mastertronic because it was a different type of racing game. Invader Load that came on that as well. And just those general kind of 64 games. That wind's getting up and the sun has disappeared behind clouds. So this is insane. It was 27 earlier. This is Cornwall for you. So yeah, I mean 64 and also kind of, I didn't want to own them, but when my mate two mates had STs with Carrier Command, I really wanted Carrier Command. I didn't want an ST, but I wanted Carrier Command. Same with F1 GP. A mate had that on his ST, and then I got it on my Amiga. Then he got an Amiga and got F1 GP. Always wanted a Master System as well, and there is a slight disappointment with the Master System because, of course, it was sold as gave the impression of being the Sega arcade machine. Of course, none of those games are actually like that at all, are they? So yeah, hopefully that answers that for you, Walden N. Matthew Ainsworth. What games come to mind that turned out better on the Amstrad and or ST rather than the C64 or Amiga? I always find the CPC and ST the most interesting because they lack hardware sprites and scrolling. The programmer had their work cut out for them. Chase HQ, for the Amstrad. Just comes out really, really well. I mean, so many, head over heels again. It's got additions over the Spectrum version, extra graphics and stuff. So that makes it nice. There's lots of good games. The ST, well, carry commands faster, I suppose. I struggle with getting good examples for the ST because it always comes down to speed. And I mean, he says he finds the machines, they lack hardware sprites and scrolling, but you don't need those. Again, hardware sprites and scrolling don't help you with things like racing games. They really, really don't. They're no good for that. So, you've got to bear that in mind. Thanks to Matthew Ainsworth for that. Steve Anderson of Your Sinclair. Trolley problem. A runaway trolley is heading directly towards a pristine CPC 6128 with all the bits. They can change the points to prevent the trolley smashing into it and destroying it. But on the other line is a good quality C64 bread bin, a recap Spectrum Plus 2, yellow but expanded A1200 and some MSX cartridges of unknown provenance. Do you pull the lever to save the CPC? I'd probably pull the lever to save the CPC, to be honest. It's nice to have a fully working CTM 644 monitor that you didn't have to worry about for 30 years. That'd be nice. Spectrum Plus 2 don't generally need recapping, so I don't need, none of mine are. Got some 48Ks that are recapped. I've got a yellow but expanded A1200. So thanks to Steve for that. Matthew Tomlinson says, what do I think of Retro Gamer magazine? He says he genuinely enjoyed reading it and the nostalgia trip it takes him on. However, end up feeling my childhood machines are somewhat marginalised in it, the BBC and ST, despite the impact they had on the market at the time of their release and the amount of top-notch homebrew seen today, especially on the Beeb. Maybe it's just rose-tinted specs on my part, wishful thinking they deserve more coverage than they get. Perhaps everyone feels the same about the machines they have the most nostalgia for. It's a commercial magazine. It's one I stopped buying about issue 100 because it really did feel a bit like Groundhog Day. And of course, the thing is, when Retro Gamer came out, there wasn't much of an online community. I first learned about Retro Gamer in Compsys Sinclair, the news group. We didn't have all the kind of as many resources as we do today. Everything was kind of on FTB, NVG, unit.no for your downloads and stuff. And today we're far better off. So you're not looking for resources. And there's only so many interviews of Matthew Smith I can stand, which was the problem back then. But also they've got to move on. And they want to sell international copies. And when I walk past the newsagent, I think, yeah, I can see where you're aiming. It's like some of the podcasts that I quite enjoy that's veered towards American stuff because the listeners are there. I can't blame them. These guys have got to make money out of this stuff. And if you're going to do stuff on American devs, you're going to get far more listeners than you will just doing something obscure on the Spectrum because, the only people who care about the Spectrum are the UK and Spain. Basically, Portugal a bit, perhaps. You do something on Mario, you're going to sell worldwide. You're going to sell into America and suddenly it's many times the market. So I can understand why these commercial things go the way they go. But, that's why ChinnyVision exists. There wouldn't be the gap for this kind of stuff and people like Geigerpunk and so on. It's fine. We can look after ourselves. We spent all those years looking after ourselves, and it was nice when these things came along, but when these people decide there's more money elsewhere, that's cool, that's fine. We've all kind of found each other now, so we've kind of banded together in our own way, and we just carry on. We're not where the money is. Duncan Ward says, a wizard sends you back in time to your childhood, live it over again with your memories intact. Oh, that sounds quite horrifying. It's almost Christmas in 1984 and you're allowed to pick one of the 8-bit machines to be your only computer. You know what games are coming for the next few years. What would you choose? 84 is a bit early for me. I don't think I'd even set eyes on a computer. I don't think I set eyes on the neighbour's 464 until 85. And I didn't get my 618 to 85. So let's move this to 86. Let's move this to 86 and pick an 8-bit computer that's going to be your only computer. And it's going to be CPC 6128, which I had, because it's a computer and not something that just plays games. And of course you want those other computers, but if you only pick one of those machines only, well, you're going to have the best of all worlds with the 6128. You've got tape games, disc games, you've got all the conversions. Yeah, some of them are going to be ropey, but actually most of the games I liked were on the Amstrad, so that's absolutely fine. If it was 1984 when we were saying that, and you're picking St. Christmas 84, oh, you see, you wouldn't have much to play in this 464, would you? You wouldn't. It's out, but we got your memory. So would you be patient and wait till the CPC really gets going? Because it really doesn't. It comes out 84. It's really 85 and early 86. It really gets a hold and becomes the third force in UK home computing. Yeah, difficult question there, but thanks for that, Duncan Ward. Jonathan Holt says, when was the last time you had the luxury of being able to really invest some time in a game outside the channel, and what was it, and any desire to revisit it? The last game I really invested some time in was Elite Dangerous. I backed it, I loved it, and I played it, and then we didn't get planetary landings on the Mac, and that must have been the time ChinnyVision got properly going, and I didn't really get time anymore, and I don't think they even support the Mac anymore, so I don't know how. Do I have a license for it now? Because I backed it from the start. Do I need to rebuy it? The other game I used to play a lot, and this is a bit before it, so I did have an Xbox 360. I used to play a little bit of Halo, which I liked, but Forza was the thing, especially the Forza nights we used to do on our old forum. And there was a video I knocked together, one of our Forza nights, which was just awesome. Bournemouth, we were racing taxis at one point, and there's kind of Bournemouth taxis and all sorts of things. And fly, get off me, fly. Flies died. Squidged on my arm. I tried to show it mercy, but I'm one-handed. Now I've took my phone over and lost my questions. So yeah, Forza, and then Halo, but mainly Elite Dangerous. I'm far too down. Right, okay. Andrew Shaw says, that's Andy Magic Knight. There are quite a few new retro machines coming out at the moment. Mega 65, the Spectrum thing. Do you think these should be classed as retro, and do you think there's a place in retro for FPGA? They're kind of retro, aren't they? You're putting retro stuff on it. They're not. It's a different experience. You're not having to maintain the hardware, do all the difficult stuff with it. You don't get the same feel from it. It's they're boxes with sometimes lead weights inside to make them feel heavy enough. But yeah, it's a difficult one because it's very useful for some people, but not for me, and not something that really jumps out of me until they're going to prise my hardware away from me in my kind of cold dead hands, basically. And that's and Andrew Shaw has actually sent me a new board for my C64 bread bin, because I've not been able to capture from that for a few months because the old one gave up. So yeah, it expands the hobby. It's kind of retro. It's not my thing, not the kind of thing this channel covers, unless I stumble across something in cache converters and want to see how awful it is. Lord Kern says, which game would have been Stone Cold Classic were it not for a single stupid design decision? That's very hard. The biggest thing that gets me is when really good games aren't quite finished, and there could have been a bit more in it to make them Stone Cold Classic. Zub is a good example. I love Zub, but it is a bit empty. And you think, if there was something a little bit more in here, this would be even better remembered than it is. And that's the kind of thing, just because devs had no time to do it, and techniques for doing stuff weren't as advanced as they are now in terms of planning stuff out. I mean, the Pickfords planned out Feud, didn't they, as a proper game. And Zub, they started doing kind of game design documents, not as, I guess, as people today would understand it, but those games were actually properly designed. Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, though, that had a single stupid design decision. I'll probably think of something tomorrow. Might flash it up on the screen if I can think of something. Warren Pilkington says, if you were to review budget games similar to Maccorn's C64 Budget Publisher Showdown, which you and I took part in, we did, and check that out. But for the CPC, which of the three main budget publishers will win on that format, and which games will stand up well and be considered for any category? I think this was a thing where podcast where they compared Firebird, Codemasters and Mastertronic games. And the thing is, Firebird aren't so good in the later years, are they? They kind of fall by the wayside. So for the Amstrad, the machine that was a late developer, as I mentioned, the kind of 86 is when it really took off. I think you're probably looking Mastertronic, to be honest. They did lots of good CPC versions of games. You know, again, like Feud is a really good proper CPC game. Doesn't have specky graphics or anything like that. It's all properly done. Games like Colony, which I really like, even though you can just end up playing it forever and ever and ever. 180, okay, it's slightly better on the Spectrum. But you can just go through that kind of mid-era Mastertronic games and they're taking it really seriously and go, yeah, these are all good and these all really stand up. Whereas Codemasters tend to fall into that specky port. Not always. But the problem is, the Oliver Twins, for example, just suddenly realise, hey, although we're coding our games on a CPC 61280, it's actually easier if we do it in such a way it's compatible with the Spectrum, thus degrading the CPC experience to make it all work better. So you end up with going from Super Robin Hood, which is a kind of fairly quickly knocked together game, but done properly for CPC with speech and mode naught graphics. And then we go to Ghost Hunters with its flickering, specky, small screen. So, yeah, I'd go Mastertronic, but thanks for that, Warren Pilkington. Richard Shaw Wright asks, are there any games you attempted and given up on? Games for ChinnyVision I've attempted and given up on, or games in general. Games in general, I bought a game called Invasion from Bulldog off the strength of Colony on the same label. I thought, Colony's fantastic. There's this other Bulldog game here. That's going to be really good. Never could even get it work. I could load it, and then it's some kind of war game. I could never even move things around on the screen or get it to do anything. My mate had it on his Atari XL, and he couldn't get it to do anything either. And I've spoken to people since who had Invasion, and none of them could do it. Perhaps I could do a ChinnyVision video all these years later and try and work out how it actually works. Games I've attempted to review for ChinnyVision I haven't completed are Elevator Action, someone asked me for, and I struggled with that. Operation Wolf, which I started and just gave up on. I lost all interest. Light gun games without light guns. Why? It's just, I got to slog through this, and it's a good game. And I know people liked it. My mate had it, and he really liked it. I've just never got on with it, and it's just soul destroying. What was the other one? Oh, one I nearly didn't complete was Commando. That was a year. I had half of it done, and I just lost, again, the will with it. And it's not a bad game, there's just something about it, and it's half the review sat there for a year, and I came back to it and then did it. So thanks to Richard Shaw Wright for that question. Lee Price, in retrospect, do you think any of the 80s computer companies like Sinclair could have lasted longer if they concentrated on the core product, not sidetracked by electric trikes or underpowered consoles? I assume he means electronic trikes, Sinclair, underpowered consoles, Amstrad. Well, let's look at the 80s computer companies. Well, Sinclair went bust because he spent all the money on stupid projects. Just to have one or two of those projects going might have been okay, to have R&D stuff going, but not as much as they had in the C5 and all these computers and stuff. Just far too much going on, and I'm slipping slightly here. What electric vehicles when no one else is doing it, he's trying to invent something that isn't quite there yet. It's just not quite there, the electric vehicles. Today, with the technology now, people would probably bite your hand off for some kind of electric bike. Although those things are so... It's not thought through. The C5 isn't thought through. And all the other stuff he was doing. People forget about, the money thrown at the QL, which basically didn't exist when they launched it and were selling it before it existed, other than a prototype. Wafer scale integration, which is the Sinclair technology that didn't go anywhere and was it completely made redundant by the fact that memory became so cheap it wasn't necessary. And Sinclair's just spending money on stuff, and you got to milk your cash cows. So they might have lasted longer if they just concentrated on The Spectrum range, incredibly popular. Why on earth wouldn't you milk that for all it's worth? Why wouldn't you have a new Spectrum out? Why did it take somebody, was it the Portuguese distributor or the Spanish distributor, to come up with the 128K Spectrum? Shouldn't that have been happening in the UK? Commodore, they went wrong, they started going wrong a long time before people think they did. People don't realise the extent Commodore were propped up by the C64 sales. Everyone thinks, the Amiga was selling great guns. It actually wasn't comparable to the 64. I've done it as a video on ChinnyVision 2 that shows the market share worldwide of computer companies for 1989. And they say in those figures that Commodore wouldn't be featuring in that chart at all if it wasn't for the C64. And Atari are nowhere near where, nowhere near being in the kind of main list there. Go and see it. It's on ChinnyVision 2. It marks something like market share 1989 worldwide or something like that. Really interesting. So Atari, again, that's a difficult one, isn't it? Because they also loused it up over a long period of time. And of course, Amstrad were the last company standing because Alan Sugar sold it to Sky in 2005, 2006. Okay, they hadn't sold computers under their own name for many, many years, but he still had a computer division, Viglin. So they were still in computers, but not quite the way perhaps they'd intended. Steve Green asks, some micro games came with merch in the box, like badges, stickers, arcades, soundtracks, and so on. I think he's asking for a computer game based on a TV show. I would have liked a proper Doctor Who game, not that Minds of Terror, whatever it's called, Tribe. Proper good one. And not that alternative game either. A really good Doctor Who game. Why has no one ever done a really good Doctor Who game? Perhaps someone has done these days. What was that dreadful one on the PC that basically wouldn't run unless you had something really... You had PC that would run Doom perfectly fine, really well at a good frame rate. You put the Doctor Who CD-ROM game in and it would just be down like one... Literally, I had to take it back because on my I had a Cyrix processor. It ran at about like 3 frames a second, and even if you had a proper Pentium, it was terrible. So a proper Doctor Who game. So I think most of the game, you see, a proper treasure hunt game, or rather than the rubbish we got, or a proper bullseye game. Genvers, I can't read the Genveers. Genvers. If the software for the micro of the 80s was somehow unpiratable, do you think the Speccy 64 CPC would have been as popular as they were, or we drifted back into being a more console-centric country? I think the consoles were coming anyway, for a start. I think the problem is, how much does piracy kill sales? There's always the thing of one pirated game equals one less sales, which is patently rubbish. It doesn't work like that. Because the people, if you were going down Barrowlands in Glasgow and buying a load of pirated games every weekend, okay, you might have got 5 pirated games for the price of your full price game. That's perhaps one full price game that wasn't sold, but 5 pirated games sold. That seemed more realistic to me. I think it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. I think everything would have drifted towards consoles because it's gone global and we've gone towards the American model. It was always going to happen. This kind of quirky thing we had over a period of, 10, 15 years was always going to come to an end once the big guys, especially like Sony, come in. It's the equivalent of Amstrad coming into the 8-bit market, going, we're a big company, we're going to come in and knock out all the dragons and all these weird companies. Fictional Media Bully, will you someday make an April Fool's Day video on how great the NES is? It's the amount of planning needed, and I don't operate on planning, and I don't really like April Fool's stuff anyway. It's too much effort for a channel that goes out weekly, if I'm honest. It's quite a hard thing to kind of do. But in an ideal world, if this was a full-time channel, perhaps I would. But no, as it is, no. Hopefully you're looking at some nice views, or I've had to go and put in some more drone stuff. I'm hoping to get a nice sunset this week, to get you some nice sunset views, because last night it looked like an Amiga racing game out here. It was all pink and purple. It looked lovely. Mark I can never say his second name. Mark, let's call him Mark. You're given the keys to the TARDIS and limited to one 60-second trip. So you go back and visit a young Chinny. What piece of advice would you give him regarding his choices that would impact on your retro journey today? That would be keep everything, buy more stuff. Especially as people were selling it off cheap. Oh, the things we all passed by. Especially when all those things we passed by. And all the stuff we kept that was worthless. And the stuff we threw away that was... I'm thinking about the stuff I threw away again. Oh, yes. Dear me. Thanks to Mark for that. Another Mark Patterson, says, what do you think Commodore 64 and Amstrad... Why do you think, Commodore 64 and Amstrad games were a quid or two more expensive than Spectrum versions? Did the software houses assume they had flashier machines and therefore more money to spend than us specky peasants? I think it's the order you came out in, because like 595 and 695 was kind of the standard when the specky was really getting going, and then the C64 arrives a little bit later, so the software house is thinking, we could try them at 795, and the Amstrad comes out a little bit later again. We'll try that at 895, and then it all just gradually creeps up slightly, and eventually it just kind of all becomes pretty much the same, doesn't it? But that's kind of why I think it's just the software houses are going, new machine. It's like the ST came first, and then the Amiga in the UK anyway. So we're going to charge £5 more for the Amiga games. The same with the C64 and the Amstrad. C64 cost more than the Spectrum. The Amstrad cost more than the C64. So that was the logic of it, I think. Andrew Waite Stuff asks, do YouTubers making high-quality content like yourself, RMC, Kim Justice, mean the death of traditional broadcast TV? The idea that me sitting on a rock with people walking behind me thinking I'm a nutter means the death of traditional broadcast TV is quite frankly ludicrous. It is quite frankly ludicrous. It's not. Traditional broadcast TV is dying for sure, and it's very, very sad that we don't... some things are so under-resourced these days. I was watching a news channel the other day, and just like the technical errors, constant technical errors. Why is this happening? It's got no money because you sacked all the technical people long ago because no one can afford it anymore. And, the TV shows are all the same type of thing. No one's going to go out and make something like, Interceptor these days because no one's going to spend the money doing that. Doctor Who gets made now because it's a big brand. Someone can go out and make Blake 7? Think not. So thanks to Andrew for that. Paul Fisher says, ever look at the Sam Coupe? I had one after my Plus 2 died. Not many games, though, that were native. I saw one on sale in John Menson's in Bournemouth once, but that's it. Chances to get one of those, are long gone. That kind of money, it's ludicrous money to get one. Lovely machines, but I especially don't want to spend money on machines I've really got no connection with, and we're not a big channel with loads of money. I spend what I have keeping the channel running and buying things in as and when I've got a big pile of stuff back at home to review and do stuff with over the summer. That's why there's a summer break. It's not I'm going to be slacking. I've got loads and loads of stuff to do. I just need to catch up on videos. So, yeah, plus Sam Coupe, I can't ever see it being on this channel, I'm afraid. Paul Arnold, similar topic. Will the Acorn Archimedes ever make a return to your channel? The UK is Belinda. I will say to the couple behind me, with another dog, a very small dog, the UK is indeed Belinda. The Archie I love and cost the channel a lot of money. I struggle getting stuff running on it. Lotus I reviewed 2 weeks ago. Actually, I did the review. It went out 2 weeks ago, but it's going to be a lot longer before. It's a lot longer ago I actually did it. I wanted to include that Lotus 2 on the Archie, and I couldn't get it working. I just could not get it working. And that's, a problem. Really, I can't spend forever getting stuff working, reading instructions online. They're incredibly complicated. You just go, I can't do this. I've got a weekly channel. I can only spend so much time doing it. So if I've got a disc, fine. If I can get a disc downloaded and get it in, it's fine. And there's no good resources for the Archie. It's not like the Amiga. You can't just go and get an ADF that someone's actually cracked. For some reason, the Archie community don't crack stuff for some bizarre reason. I do not know why. Is it because they're not gamers? I don't know. But there's a bloke looking at me like I'm weird again. It suddenly gets busy down here, that's the thing. He's looking at me. I'm going to stare at him. Are you staring at me, mate? I'm going to stare at you. Power of ChinnyVision. The wind gets up. So because there's not that amount of cracked software, it makes it really hard to get stuff working. I've got Premiere Manager on disk, and it's expensive to buy stuff as well. I bought Premiere Manager in, that was really expensive, and it crashes a lot. That's the other thing with Archie software. Sometimes it's been ported and it doesn't necessarily work that well. So, I want to do loads more. Swiv was lovely to do, but that was already on my hard disk. So it's hard. If anyone can give me help with it, I'd be really grateful, because it's kind of got to the point where it's sitting there looking at me going, use me. And I can't, because I will try and find some more stuff. Premiere Manager is on the agenda. I've got the disc there. It doesn't need to be cracked because it's got its code wheel. Zool might happen as well because I've got the discs and someone's given me a tool that will generate the codes. Stromberg Thornton says, if you're going to use one retro computer for the rest of your days and you're not allowed to use anything touched by Alan Sugar, what would it be? And actually Andrew Robertson pretty much asks the same thing. And it's going to be the Amiga 1200, because you're covered nicely on that. That man's climbing over those rocks now. That's where I'd usually be. I don't know what he's doing. He's looking at things. Strange man. Who comes out here and climbs over rocks? Weirdos. Amiga 1200, because you've got all those games. You've got Formula 1 Grand Prix, Populous 2 will keep you amused for days. I remember playing that so much I went outside and I felt ill because I hadn't been outside for days. I really hammered it. Lotus 2, all these great games. I say F1 GP, all those shoot 'em ups. I have to have a Combat Flash in it and have everything ever installed on it. You had Wing Commander on it and Accelerator as well. So you've got all your games running at a decent speed. Amiga 1200, no question. Last question. A reheated Pixels, that's Pete Prodge to you and I, says, a genie pops out of a lamp and grants you full legal rights to the branding and back catalogue of any software house. It's your choice. What do you pick and why? Well, it's complicated, but if I can have the rights to the actual games, and you'll understand why, all the material as well, if you see what I mean, then it would be Ocean. Because the amazing catalogue they got. The problem is all those things are licenses, so you probably find that you can't actually do much with the Addams Family without going back to Paramount or whoever owns it. But it would be, for me, Ocean is the one. It's the software house. It's the one. If you said there's only going to be one software house, you're going to say, well, you can only have one games from one software house. You'd go, like I said, the Amiga. You could say Ocean, because you've got the most variety of games. As long as you're accounting, you really are the sub-brands like Imagine and stuff. But yeah, that's who I'd pick for that. So I'm going to pick some winners from this for the questions I like. And I like questions that make me think. So for the piracy question from Genvers, you'll be getting a ChinnyVision pen. Please drop me an email or contact me somehow on Twitter or something, just to give me your postal address so I can send you a ChinnyVision pen. Anyone else wants a ChinnyVision pen, they're available on ChinnyVision.com. Other winners, let's have a look through these. Duncan Ward, who wants to send me back to time to 1984 and pick a computer. Again, that made me think, because I've also got to think like it's 84 and I've really started 85. But Duncan Ward, you also get a ChinnyVision pen, and I'll possibly send you guys stickers as well, if I'm feeling generous, in your padded envelope. So Duncan Ward also getting in contact with me. And finally, Pete Prodge, Reheated Pixels, the one software house question I like, because it's a bit different. I did actually have to think about that one. Yeah, Pete, send me your details on Twitter, postal address. You'll get a ChinnyVision pen and possibly a sticker as well if I like you. So thank you for listening or watching or whatever. This has gone on for so long. I'm going to have to find some more footage, aren't I? But thank you for all your support over the past year. I'm not stopping over the summer. I want to be coming back in September with about 10 videos ready to go. We've got hardware. I've got 2 MSX machines. I've got a SCART switcher. I've got a new scaler or signal converter to do. I've got loads of games lined up. I am currently editing. What am I currently editing? Goodness me. Oh, my brain. Look, it's getting really dark here now. I'm reviewing Ninja Warriors at the moment. Is that the moon out? The moon's coming out. The moon. Look at the moon. Look at the moon. On my dodgy camera work as I go over there. Ninja Warriors I'm editing at the moment. That will be out in September. Keep an eye on ChinnyVision 2. There will be videos on ChinnyVision 2 over the summer break. But I'll be back first Thursday in September with more ChinnyVision. Remember to subscribe to the ChinnyVision podcast as well. There's always the Patreon for people who really like it. There may be preamble and stuff for the Patreon people. I don't know. Perhaps more stuff after this. See, it's all going on here with the moon and stuff, and I've been here for quite a long time, as you can see. Anyway, look, I'm shutting up now. No one's watching this. Are you watching this? If you are, comment below. Prize winners, please contact me. And as I say, thank you for all your amazing support. It's been another fantastic year on ChinnyVision. It's all about the people and not about the numbers of. I never look at the views, really, unless YouTube nags me about stuff. Your video is underperforming. That's good. Thank you, YouTube. Anyway, I'm wittering now. I'm going. Bye-bye. Thanks.